you need to be concerned when there are those who are worried about INEC, the umpire, and the manner in which it conducts its activities. So we've heard and seen those who are in the movement for credible election come out to say that the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, should withdraw its reported appeal against a federal high court judgment nullifying aspects of the commission's timetable and schedule of activities for the 2027 general elections. There was a statement issued today by the group, which include Dr. Usman Bugaje, Dr. Obiageli Ezekwesili, Ms. Bilikisu Magoro, and Olawale Okunoyi, where they have warned that the appeal could undermine public confidence in INEC's neutrality and credibility ahead of the 2027 polls. Let's speak now with one of the signatories to that statement and one of the conveners of the movement for credible election in Nigeria, Dr. Usman Bugaje, who was a former presidential advisor, former member of the House of Reps, and a political analyst and scholar. Is live for us virtually on the program. Thanks so much indeed, Dr. Bugaje, for your time tonight.
A pleasure, Sean.
Why would you say INEC should not appeal a matter, a judgment that literally capacitates its ability to stand its ground in the face of his regulatory authority as an umpire?
First, the judgment did not incapacitate INEC. If you look at the judgment carefully, what it's basically doing is declaratory. It's a declaratory judgment, basically explaining to INEC that it is, going beyond the powers that it has been given. Section 29 has, clearly demarcated, the powers that INEC have in regulating elections and to allow the political parties to, properly prepare for the election. So what the judgment has done is basically to set limits for INEC, because INEC has been, overreaching and overstepping the bounds that the electoral law has given it, and has been interfering in ways that we have not seen before. INEC would receive a court order, and then they will now, come again with another court order and doing what they are doing. We can see that clearly with some of the opposition parties. So I think the judgment of Justice Umar is basically trying to, lead INEC to play its role properly well, because what it did earlier on was clearly designed to muzzle up opposition, and it went beyond what the law has provided, trying to move from a regulator to a stakeholder, because when you appeal for a declaratory judgment, you are basically trying to step the bound of a regulator into a stakeholder. What basically the judgment did is to say, look, these 120 days that are given will go up to September. So allow the parties to do their work properly well so that they can work within the law. And basically that's the law. I'm aware that there is another judgment by Justice Omotosho that is being perceived to have been to be something completely against that of Justice Umar. I'm sure you are aware of that, Shimon.
Yeah, but Dr. Bugaje, if your group says INEC risk losing its neutrality by appealing the federal high court judgment on that election timetable, but INEC could argue easily, Dr. Bugaje, to say it is merely seeking a judicial clarification on its constitutional powers. Why do you interpret the appeal as a threat to democracy rather than a legitimate legal process? Doesn't INEC have the powers to say, we do not agree with the position of the court because it's to whittle down our powers and to make our plans ahead of the election a mockery?
Fair enough. If they want, they can go ahead to do so. We are just simply advising them because what they did in the first place was not with consultation of the political parties. Every time INEC is working out on an electoral timetable, it works with the political parties under IPAC. And this timetable was done without consultation with the political parties. It was after the timetable took place, the political parties insisted that they wanted to see INEC, and they sat down, and in that particular sitting, they were able to show INEC a number of areas where it went wrong. It conceded certain grounds, but it upheld certain grounds. That kind of discussion should have continued, but INEC did not show any interest in proceeding with that kind of discussion. And it was, clearly trying to straitjacket every political party, while the law itself, the electoral law itself, has allowed more time for political parties to get ready. All the judgment did was to say, hey, wait a minute. The law itself, Section 29 in particular, has given political parties up to September. Why are you asking them to have to submit everything, in May? And basically, it's like, a clarifying for INEC. Now, if INEC does not like that kind of clarification, it seeks to go to another court for another clarification. Fair enough, it has the right to do so. But what it means then is that public perception is now going to change. Remember, Sean, in 2023, Afrobarometer took a survey, and only 23% of Nigerians had confidence in INEC. So already INEC was very low. More than 3/4 of Nigerians in 2023 did not have confidence, did not trust INEC. Now, with that very low perception and esteem, we thought INEC would do better if they pull back and listen to what the courts are saying, and then try to adjust to gain the confidence of the political parties. If it doesn't want to gain the political parties' confidence and it wants to go on its own, fair enough, let it go. There are consequences.
But, you cited the Afrobarometer findings, which, according to your statement, says shows about 23% public trust in INEC, which is very low considering the fact that INEC, 23%, that's very low considering the fact that that organization needs a lot of public trust for it to be able to conduct any election that any Nigerian can hold on to, because legitimacy comes from the fairness and the neutrality of the process. So in that sense, many Nigerians will argue that the distrust did not begin with this appeal INEC is raising, which you say is a threat to our democracy. But from the handling of the 2023 election, that's where the distrust is coming from, especially around issues related to BVAS uploads and result transmission. Now, you have a problem with the timetable and the manner in which INEC has done it. There is also the trust issues there. Are Nigerians simply losing faith in the entire electoral architecture, or is INEC the problem? Because if you say to me, Professor Amupiton is a problem, but Amupiton was not the one who conducted the election in 2023. Is he an institutional, architectural, electoral problem? Or what exactly is the issue here? Your group have raised a big concern about this institution, electoral process. But who should we hold accountable?
Well, Sharon, thank you very much for balancing, as you should as a journalist. But let's go a little back. Go back to the electoral law itself, the way it was passed in the parliament. Remember just two things. You remember one of the things that they did, which is a government effort this time, to decriminalize the forgery of certificates, right? And after that, a lot of other mines and ambushes were, introduced into the electoral law. A lot of analysis has been done. You have hosted a number of experts, and they have spoken to you about a number of these mines and traps and booby traps and all the rest of it. But that particular thing tells you something. It tells you that we have now a government that is interested in creating space for criminals. Now come to the final event when the law was eventually passed. You remember there were protests, both in the House of Reps and in the Senate. In one of the houses, a group of senators came out basically declaring the leadership as thieves who have refused to listen to them on matters of electronic using the electronic transmission of results. So all this is a build-up, you know. I mean, with all these things that have happened, the protests that took place in the National Assembly, all these are eroding the confidence. That little 23% that was, that was left in 2023 is going down again. If it comes to 10 or 15%, what kind of elections are we going to have where the bulk of the citizens don't trust, the so-called independent umpire? So the point we are making is basically that INEC must be seen to be transparent, must be seen to be independent, must be seen to be a regulator, not a stakeholder.
So let me ask you a frank question, Dr. Bugaje. What do you see about this election in terms of the ability, because it gets to a point in time that the people become so deeply invested in the process of electing their leaders, so much that they cannot sit on the sidelines. And we've seen Nigerians over the past years who have sat on the sidelines. They sit at home on election day. They really do not care about what exactly is going on as far as the election is concerned, not knowing that their lives and livelihood is determined on the people they elect into office. And in this sense, do you think Nigerians are so invested right now ahead of the 2027 election? Have Nigerians been pushed emotionally to the point where they want to determine who elect them? Do you see a change in atmosphere from what we saw in 2023? Or just going to be the little turnout and people then complaining later, whoever emerges at the end of the day?
Thank you very, very much for this question. Sean, it's everybody's knowledge that the government is working with INEC to sabotage opposition political parties. You have seen what has happened to the PDP. You have seen what has happened to the Labour Party. You have seen what has happened to SDP. You have seen what is happening to other smaller parties, even the PRP, that we thought was like, not much attention is going to be paid. So there is this, clear, if you like, surreptitious move to destroy the opposition party so that the ruling party will be left alone to stand. I don't know what kind of election that is going to be when you have muzzled out everybody. So who are you going to compete with? Where is the election? And you just need to go to the social media to see the tremendous frustration with young people in particular. There are lots of drama, there are lots of skits that are being done to show both government and INEC as working together to see how they can frustrate opposition parties. We are basically intervening to say, INEC, you need to redeem your image. If you are going to conduct this election, you need to build trust of the citizens. And the way to do it is not to behave like a stakeholder, is not to behave like an interested party, to remain as a regulator and to remove all the obstacles that have been put on the path of opposition political parties still working within the law.
Now, give us your real fear. There is growing anxiety around the 2027 election. There are those who complain about economic hardship, regional tension, rising political coalitions, and public anger against institutions. Is your group concerned ultimately that Nigeria may be heading toward a a legitimate crisis, because there are those who say security is not getting any better? But ahead of this election, we've seen the plurality of political alignment, and there are those who say you cannot make any change happen if opposition forces are not ready to come together, because the caliber and the kind of personality, the incumbent, and the manner in which the political party, the ruling party, they posture themselves, it's going to be, it's going to take a miracle to be able to defeat them.
Well, you have to go back a little to remember, the way they removed the provision in the old law for electronic transmission of voting. That, for many, is seen as a preparation for rigging. Because if you do not want to rig, why remove a provision that was already there? All you needed to do to show transparency and to build confidence is to ensure that that provision of transparency is strengthened. Now that was removed, and then INEC has started, under the new leadership, started to do things that were clearly partisan. And it is these kind of signals that are making people to even wonder what kind of elections are we going to have in 2027. And this is what is agitating not only the opposition political parties, but more importantly, young people who see that their future is being completely punctured and destroyed. Young people who have spent the last 3 years of this administration, nothing has improved. They have not gotten jobs. They have not gotten any. There is no hope in the time, because the devaluation of the naira, the raising of the prices of petrol, the way the whole government has been focusing on themselves, and the level of borrowing, and the fact that, like last year, basically, or this year's budget hearings have shown that last year hardly any ministry got any money to do any work. So where is the money going? These are the questions that young people are asking. You are borrowing and borrowing and borrowing, and yet you are not even able to finance the budget. For the first time, we were running 3 budgets at the same time: 2024, 2025, and 2026, and you don't even know when this one stops, when this one starts, and all this confusion, and with all the antics that INEC is playing, and other institutions of government like the security and even part of the judiciary, it creates a lot of worry as to what kind of country are we really building. And these young people who are looking forward to something coming from government that will assure them that they will have a normal life like other young people in other African countries and other countries of Asia that are far less rich, not as rich as Nigeria, yet they can see their riches being stolen, being wasted.
Dr. Bugaje, you're raising some of this concern. Are there specific signs you're already seeing that suggest that the country could face serious instability if electoral neutrality or credibility is not restored urgently? And perhaps if you could give us an understanding of the safeguards that could be introduced before 2027 to insulate INEC, if you have done some of these fears, from accusations of executive influence or partisan postural capture.
Well, 2 things here, Shehu. First, I keep going back to the electoral law. If really the government is not courting anarchy, is not actually building the difficulties that are going to lead to anarchy, they need to still go back and change that law and allow for electronic transmission of result. What they call, a transmission that will show everybody the votes that have taken place. Now, that kind of thing is very important. I still time for it because you can see how they pass, how they do these loans, just simply hours, the request for the loan and the passing. So if they want, they can do it all in one day. So unless you go back and change some of these critical aspects of the electoral law, that image of a government, preparing to rig elections is going to remain there in the minds of many people. So if they really want to improve, that's the place to go. There is still sufficient time to do it. I don't think they will do it, but it's important that we state that is there. Now, the second point is, I am not quite sure from all that I have seen that this government has learned the lessons of other African countries. Look at what's happened in Kenya. I mean, there were two instances in Kenya this government should learn from. Before the Gen Zs, woke up. And when Nigerian Gen Zs woke up, I don't know what's going to happen. We have seen a taste of it during the NSAS. We have seen a taste of it during the end bad governance. When this third wave comes, I don't know how it is going to be, but I know that the level of frustration is intense and people are really on the edge because this is a government, I keep saying, that has not performed. They have not improved on insecurity. They have not improved on welfare. They have not improved on taxes. They have done everything to cripple the economy and to render life completely miserable. And they are, they have encircled themselves with sycophants that are not ready to tell them what exactly is happening. And those of us who speak about these things are seen as opposition. We're not opposition. We're just concerned about the future of our own country. We are concerned about the future of our own children. We have got many children who have graduated. They have no jobs. And even those who have jobs cannot feed themselves. And so if you cannot, with all the wealth that God has given this country, do the kind of governance that you will distribute wealth and allow citizens to see that the government is genuinely trying to help the citizens like it happens in other countries, then people are going to be, that anger that is building up is definitely going to boil over. Unless certain things are done before the election.
Let's wrap this up quickly in 60 seconds. And my question, I'll probably show you a picture of what things are looking right now. Those who are up against President Bola Tinubu in this race. And you will have this amount of time up until next year, February, when Nigerians will be able to vote. But you see the likes of Atiku Abubakar that has emerged from the ADC. Kachiku Dumebi also contending that he's also a presidential candidate of the ADC. Donald Duke from the PRP, Adebayo Adewale, Prince Adewale of the SDP. Atonda is also contesting that. There is also a candidate of that party. We've seen the expectations that Peter Obi and Konkoso might be on the same ticket for the NDC. And these are going to be people that will be up against President Tinubu. For example, also there's a possibility that APM might have a Sheyi Makinde on the ballot. With your experience, you've been in the National Assembly. You have had one foot also in the executive arm of government. And you've seen how politics has been played in this country. You could also be able to use your experience and your years in this country to be able to give a feel of how this election could pan out in 2027. If you look at a crystal ball, what would be your permutation ahead of this election?
Thank you, Sean. I have a completely different approach to this. All these people with ambition to become presidents and going to different parties and trying to get a ticket, I'm not impressed. They don't seem to understand the level of destruction in the last, let's say, 12 or so years of governments, from that of Muhammadu Buhari to this one. And therefore, what I thought they should be doing, if they truly love this country, to put their ambitions together, come and create a collegiate leadership. Every one of them will be part of that government, but come up with an agenda to salvage this country. Because I hate to be supporting people whose basic ambition is to become president of this country, even without any idea of what exactly they want to do. I have been saying this. You have large number of politicians coming together under one political platform. We have all the big names, but there are no big ideas. What we require is the idea to salvage this country. This is a country with a great promise, with great potential, but which has been destroyed by politicians who are selfish, who are reckless, who are irresponsible. What we require now, I'm not impressed this one is in this party, this one, and I don't think any one particular of them alone can solve the problems of this country. I would rather, if they truly love this country, they come together, they create a collegiate leadership, decide which platform to run, and then salvage this country, work together with a big idea to bring this country to where it should be in the next 25 years.
Dr. Usman Bugaje, a former member of the House of Representatives, former presidential advisor, and one of the conveners of the movement for credible elections in Nigeria. Many thanks for your time tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank you
so much indeed. I appreciate it.